The old man sits on a porch that has weathered 70 Wyoming winters. His hands, gnarled like ancient oak roots, rest on the arms of a rocking chair that creaks with each gentle sway. September light filters through the cottonwood trees, painting golden streaks across weathered wood. The year is 1955, and Ethan Collier is 70 years old. Beside him, a boy of 16 perches on the porch rail. Thomas Collier has his grandfather's eyes, that same steady gray that seems to look through things rather than at them. He holds an old photograph, sepia-toned and cracked at the edges. 4 people stand before a barn. 3 women and 1 man, all of them smiling. "Grandfather," Thomas says, turning the photograph to catch the light. "Who are these women? The ones standing with you?" Ethan is silent for a long moment. His gaze drifts past the porch, past the sprawling ranch that stretches to the horizon, past the present moment entirely. When he speaks, his voice carries the weight of 7 decades. "That's a story about the day I learned what honor really means, boy. Not the kind you talk about, the kind you live, the kind that costs you everything and gives you more than you ever knew you needed." Thomas leans forward, the photograph forgotten in his lap. It was 1885. Ethan continues, his eyes distant now, seeing things that happened when the world was young and he was a different man. "I was 30 years old, and I was about as close to dead as a man can get without actually dying." The breeze picks up, rustling through the cottonwoods. Somewhere in the distance, cattle low. The modern world of 1955 feels very far away. "Tell me," Thomas says quietly. Ethan nods slowly. He rocks once, twice, finding the rhythm of memory. Then he begins. "It started with a storm. The world dissolves. The porch fades. The old man's voice becomes younger, stronger, urgent. And suddenly we are no longer in 1955. We are in 1885, and the storm is coming. The sky over Wyoming turns the color of a fresh bruise. Purple clouds mass on the western horizon, swelling and darkening as they roll across the plains. Lightning flickers in their depths, brief white veins that illuminate the gathering darkness before plunging everything back into shadow. The air tastes of copper and rain. Ethan Collier stands in the yard of his ranch, one hand shading his eyes as he watches the storm's approach. He is 30 years old, lean and weathered, with the kind of quiet strength that comes from years of hard labor and harder choices. A scar runs the length of his left forearm, white against tanned skin. He walks with a slight limp that most people never notice. The ranch sprawls around him. 480 acres of Wyoming grassland registered under the Homestead Act in 1879. Proved up in 1884. His by right and by work. The barn is solid oak, 40 feet by 60, with a roof of pine shingles. 6 horses stand in the corral, ears twitching nervously as the wind picks up. 15 Hereford cattle graze in the near pasture, already moving toward the shelter of the tree line. Ethan has lived alone here for 3 years. Before that, he lived here with his wife. Before that, he lived somewhere else entirely, wearing a badge and believing in things he no longer believes in. The house behind him is simple. 2 rooms, stone fireplace, a well that goes down 30 feet into the earth. There are no photographs on the walls, no letters on the table, just the bare necessities of a man who has chosen solitude over society. He checks the sky again. The barometer inside the house has been dropping all day, from 30.12 down to 29.65. That kind of pressure change means serious weather. The kind that tears roofs off barns and turns dry creek beds into raging torrents. The wind gusts strong enough to make him plant his feet. Dust devils spin across the yard. In the corral, his buckskin mare, Dusty, tosses her head and whinnies. Ethan has learned to trust the instincts of horses. They know things before men do. He moves with purpose, now crossing the yard in long strides despite the limp. The corral gate swings open under his hands. One by one, he leads the horses into the barn. Dusty first, then the 2 Mustangs, then the 3/4 horses. They go reluctantly, eyes rolling white, but they go. Inside the barn, Ethan works quickly. He checks each stall, making sure nothing loose can become a missile when the wind hits. He fills water troughs. He moves hay bales away from the walls, away from anything that might catch fire if lightning strikes. His hands are steady, efficient. This is not his first storm, but something about this one feels different. He climbs to the loft and examines the roof. 3 shingles are loose. He hammers them back into place, the sound sharp and rhythmic in the growing darkness. Through the loft window he can see the storm closer now, maybe 5 miles out, maybe less. The first drops of rain hit the roof like thrown pebbles. Ethan climbs down from the loft and crosses to the barn door. He braces it with a heavy timber 4 inches by 4 inches solid pine. Then he steps outside one last time to scan the horizon. That's when he sees them. 3 figures, distant and small, running through the rain that now falls in sheets. They're perhaps 400 yards away, moving fast, but struggling against the wind that tries to push them sideways. Lightning flashes, and in that brief illumination, Ethan sees details. Skirts, long hair plastered to heads, arms pumping with desperation. Women, 3 of them, running like the devil himself is on their heels. Ethan's jaw tightens. Nobody travels in weather like this. Nobody runs through a storm this violent unless they're running from something worse. He makes a decision in the space of a heartbeat. "Get inside," he shouts, though they're still too far away to hear him over the thunder. He yanks the barn door wide open, holding it against the wind that wants to tear it from his hands. Get inside. They see him, see the barn, see shelter. They run harder. The storm hits in full fury now. Rain comes down so thick it's like standing under a waterfall. Visibility drops to almost nothing. Ethan can barely see the 3 figures anymore, just dark shapes struggling through the deluge. Then they're close. 50 yards, 20, 10. The first woman staggers through the barn door, soaked to the bone, gasping for breath. The second follows, supporting the third, who seems barely able to stand. All 3 collapse just inside the threshold. Ethan slams the barn door shut behind them. The wind hammers against it immediately, making the whole structure shudder. He throws the timber brace back into place and leans against it, breathing hard. For a long moment there's only the sound of the storm and 4 people trying to catch their breath. Then Ethan turns to look at his unexpected guests. 3 women stand in pools of water on his barn floor. All of them are shaking. All of them look like they've been running for days. The eldest is perhaps 28, tall and straight-backed despite her exhaustion. Her dark hair hangs in wet ropes down her back. Her dress is good quality but torn at the hem, muddy at the knees. She has the kind of face that's used to being in charge, to making decisions, and living with the consequences. Her eyes are sharp, alert, scanning the barn even now, looking for exits, looking for weapons, looking for threats. The second woman is younger, maybe 24. Auburn hair frames a face that's beautiful in a fierce way. Her eyes are startling blue even in the dim light of the barn. She wears riding pants instead of a skirt, which is unusual for the time. There's a fresh cut on her right cheek, still bleeding slightly. Her knuckles are scraped raw. This one has been in a fight recently. The third is the youngest, perhaps 20 years old. Blonde hair clings to a thin face. She's the one who can barely stand, supported by the other 2. She trembles violently, and not just from the cold. Her eyes are huge and terrified, darting around like a cornered animal looking for escape. Ethan raises both hands slowly, palms out, a gesture of peace, of no harm intended. "You're safe from the storm in here," he says. His voice is quiet, steady, the voice of a man who understands fear and knows not to add to it. "Name's Ethan Collier. This is my land." The dark-haired woman steps forward slightly, placing herself between him and the other 2, protective even in her exhaustion. "I'm Maggie," she says. Her voice is stronger than her appearance suggests. "This is Kate," she gestures to the auburn-haired woman. "And Sarah." She doesn't offer last names, doesn't say where they're from or where they're going. Just first names given carefully, as if even those might be too much information. Ethan nods. He doesn't press. A man learns things living alone on the frontier. One of those things is when to ask questions and when to leave silence alone. "Storm's going to blow hard for hours," he says instead. "You're welcome to wait it out here." Kate, the one with the fierce blue eyes, lifts her chin. There's challenge in her gaze and something else, something that looks like a test. "Think you can truly handle us all?" she asks. Her voice is rough from cold, but it carries an edge that has nothing to do with the weather. Maggie shoots her a warning look, but Kate doesn't back down. Ethan meets her eyes steadily. "I reckon I can manage," he says. Thunder cracks so loud the barn shakes. Sarah jumps and presses closer to her sisters. In that moment, in that involuntary flinch, Ethan sees what he'd already begun to suspect. These women aren't just travelers caught in a storm. They're running, and they're terrified. He sees other things too now that his eyes have adjusted to the dim light. Bruises on Maggie's forearms, the kind that come from someone grabbing her hard and holding on. The defensive wounds on Kate's knuckles. The way Sarah won't meet his eyes at all, the way she flinches at every sound. Something bad has happened to these three. Something recent and violent. "There's a stove in the tack room," Ethan says quietly. "I'll get a fire started. You can warm up." Kate steps in front of him before he can move, too fast. Her hand drops to her boot where Ethan can now see the outline of a knife handle. "No," she says sharply. "We're fine here." Maggie touches her sister's arm, a gentle warning. But Kate doesn't step aside immediately. Ethan keeps his hands visible, unthreatening. "You're safe," he says again. "If I meant trouble, I wouldn't have opened the door." Kate holds his stare for what feels like a long time. Her eyes search his face, looking for something. Deceit, maybe. Violence. The things she's clearly learned to expect from men. Whatever she sees, it must satisfy her because she finally steps aside. But her hand stays near that knife. Ethan walks to the tack room, moving slowly, telegraphing every movement. He kneels by the potbelly stove and begins building a fire. Kindling first, then small pieces of mesquite wood, then larger logs. Within minutes, flames are crackling. The orange glow spreads through the small room, pushing back the shadows. He stands and steps back, giving the women space, room to approach the heat without coming near him. Maggie leads Sarah to the fire first, rubbing her youngest sister's arms gently. "You're shaking," she whispers. "I'm trying," Sarah murmurs, her voice barely audible. "I'm trying so hard." Ethan pretends not to hear, but his chest tightens. Whatever they're running from has carved fear into this girl so deeply it shows in the way she breathes. He busies himself checking the horses, giving the women privacy. But he can't ignore the tension humming through the barn like a living thing. The storm rages on outside. Wind screams around the corners of the building. Rain hammers the roof like fists. This is the kind of weather that kills people caught in the open. These three are lucky they found shelter when they did, but Ethan knows that luck only explains so much. They're out here for a reason, running through a killing storm for a reason. And that reason is probably still out there somewhere waiting. He works quietly, checking stalls, refilling water buckets. Kate paces like a caged wolf, never still, always watching. Maggie tends to Sarah with gentle efficiency. None of them speak. Finally, Ethan breaks the silence. "Whoever hurt you three?" he says softly, not looking at them directly. "Is he close by?" All movement in the barn stops. Maggie freezes. Kate stops pacing instantly. Sarah's shoulders go rigid. For a long moment, no one answers. The only sounds are the fire crackling and the storm outside. Then Maggie steps closer. The firelight catches her face, highlighting the exhaustion there, the grief, the bone-deep weariness. "We're not ready to talk about it," she says carefully, each word chosen with precision. "But you're right. Someone is following us." The wind slams against the barn walls, making them groan. Ethan doesn't flinch. His eyes sharpen, though, become more focused. "He after all three of you." Kate laughs once. It's a terrible sound humor, less and hard as iron. "Oh, he wants all of us, in different ways." "Kate," Maggie warns. "No!" Kate snaps. She turns to face Ethan fully. "He deserves to be named. His name is William Drake. He owns land, businesses, lawmen. He acts like he owns people too, including us." The name hits Ethan like a physical blow. His jaw clenches so hard a muscle jumps in his cheek. His hand resting on a fence post grips the wood tight enough to make it creak. Maggie sees his reaction. Her sharp eyes miss nothing. "You know him," she says, not a question, a statement. Ethan is silent for several heartbeats. When he speaks, his voice is carefully controlled. "I know him." "How?" Kate demands. Ethan meets her fierce gaze. "That's a longer story, for later. Right now, tell me about him. Tell me why you're running." Maggie and Kate exchange a look. Some silent communication passes between them. Then Maggie nods slightly. "Our mother is dead," Maggie says flatly. "Margaret Brennan Sr. She owned 4,800 acres in Colorado County. Good land with silver deposits that were discovered last year." She speaks like someone giving a report. Facts laid out clearly, emotions locked away where they can't interfere. "Drake wanted to buy the land, offered $2 an acre. My mother refused. The land was worth $15 to $20 an acre with the silver. Drake knew that. So he proposed marriage," Kate adds bitterly. "Our mother was 52, he was 44. She refused him too, said she'd rather die alone than live owned." Sarah makes a small sound, something between a sob and a whimper. Maggie reaches for her hand. "After that, the accident started," Maggie continues. "Fences cut, cattle stolen, our barn caught fire, someone poisoned our well, we had to dig a new one. Then Drake filed claims," she says. "Said our mother owed $5,000 in back taxes. He had documents. They were forged, but they looked official. Drake owns the tax assessor, he owns the county clerk, he owns the judge." "When was this?" Ethan asks quietly. "The forgery backdated to 1880 through 1884. The court date was set for September of this year. But your mother died before it could go to trial." "Yes." Maggie's voice cracks slightly on that single word. She clears her throat. "June. She was riding to town to meet with a lawyer. Her saddle cinch broke. The horse threw her. She broke her neck. The sheriff ruled it accidental," Kate says, and her voice is pure venom now. "Drake's sheriff. But I found the saddle later, found where the cinch had been cut. Clean knife cut, not wear and tear, not an accident, murder." Ethan closes his eyes briefly. He knows how this story goes. He's seen it before, lived it before. "After the funeral," Maggie continues, "Drake came to our house. He was very polite, very proper. He expressed his condolences. Then he said we had 30 days to settle our mother's debts and vacate the property. We refused," Kate says. "Told him the debts were fake and he knew it. Told him we'd fight him in court. Told him to go to hell." "That's when he sent his men," Sarah whispers. It's the first time she's spoken since they arrived. Her voice is thin, fragile. "They came at night. 3 of them. They said Drake wanted to speak with us, wanted to make a new arrangement." She starts shaking again. Maggie wraps an arm around her. "They tried to take Sarah," Kate says, and now there's murder in her voice. "Put their hands on her. I stopped them." "How?" Ethan asks. Kate's smile is cold. "Same way I got these." She holds up her scraped knuckles. "Broke one man's nose, stabbed another in the leg with a kitchen knife. The third one ran. We left that night," Maggie says. "Took what we could carry and ran. That was 4 days ago. Drake sent 3 riders to track us. We've stayed ahead of them, but barely. We saw them half a day behind us before this storm hit." Ethan is quiet, processing all of this. The pieces fit together in an ugly picture. Land worth a fortune. A woman who refused to be bought or intimidated. A man with enough power to forge documents and buy lawmen. Murder made to look like an accident. And 3 young women orphaned and hunted with nowhere to go and no one to protect them. "Drake will come here," he says finally, "when the storm passes. If his men tracked you this far, they know where you went." "We know," Maggie says quietly. "That's why we'll be gone by morning." "Storm this strong." Ethan shakes his head. "Be 3 days before the roads are passable, maybe more." Kate's eyes flash. "We don't have 3 days. We don't have 3 hours. The longer we stay in one place, the more danger we bring to whoever shelters us. That's my decision to make, Ethan says. His voice is calm but firm. This is my land, my barn, my choice. You don't know what you're inviting, Kate says. She steps closer to him, challenging. Drake has an army. He has judges and sheriffs in his pocket. He has more money than you've probably seen in your life, and he doesn't lose, ever. Think you can truly handle us all, Ethan Collier? She asks again, and this time the question carries layers of meaning. A warning, a test, a plea she won't admit to making. Ethan looks at each of them in turn. Maggie with her quiet strength and her burden of responsibility. Kate with her fierce defiance and her barely controlled rage. Sarah with her fragile courage and her devastating fear. I'll handle whatever comes, he says quietly. And whoever comes. The way Kate's expression shifts tells him his answer struck deeper than she expected. For just a moment her mask cracks. He sees past the anger to the desperation underneath. Before anyone can speak again, the horses suddenly go wild. All 6 of them start kicking at their stalls, snorting, slamming against the wood. Dusty rears up, eyes rolling white. The Mustangs scream. Ethan drops the tools he's holding and rushes forward. Easy, easy now. But horses don't panic like this because of a storm. Horses panic when they smell something. Predator, danger, threat, or men. Ethan's heart begins to pound. He moves to the barn door, pressing his ear against the wood. For a long moment there's only the sound of wind and rain. Then faint but unmistakable he hears it. Hoofbeats, slow, deliberate, approaching through the storm. Maggie grabs Sarah's hand. Kate reaches for the knife in her boot. All 3 women go perfectly still. Ethan's voice drops low, steady, deadly calm. Someone's out there. The hoofbeats grow clearer with every passing second. Not the frantic gallop of a rider fighting the storm. No, this is measured, controlled. The pace of a man who knows exactly where he's going and believes nothing in this world can stop him. Ethan tightens his grip on his rifle. Back away from the door, he murmurs. Maggie pulls Sarah behind the tack room wall. Kate stays closer, knife clenched, tight jaw set. Fear flickers across her face for only a moment before she buries it beneath anger. The hoofbeats stop right outside the barn, close enough that Ethan can hear leather creaking, a saddle shifting, a horse breathing hard through its nostrils. Then a man's voice cuts through the storm, deep, polished, smooth, the kind of voice used to giving orders and having them followed without question. "I know you're in there," Sarah gasps softly. Kate's fingers whiten around her knife handle. Maggie closes her eyes briefly as if gathering strength for what's coming. The voice continues unhurried, almost amused. "You there inside the barn. This your land." Ethan doesn't answer. He moves slowly to a crack in the barn door, lightning flashes illuminating a shadow through the gap. A tall rider on a dark horse. The storm highlights something metal, a gun, maybe a silver buckle on an expensive belt. "Who's asking?" Ethan says quietly. The man laughs, a short, cold sound that has nothing to do with humor. "You know who I am." Ethan's stomach tightens. Kate's eyes fill with hatred so pure it's almost tangible. Sarah presses herself deeper behind Maggie. The rider tilts his head toward the door. Rain streams off his hat brim. "I know those girls ran this way. Storm or no storm, I want them back." Ethan keeps his voice carefully neutral. "Not sure who you're talking about." A long, heavy silence follows. Dangerous silence. Then the man says softly, almost gently, "You must think they're worth dying for." Kate steps forward before Ethan can stop her. "You'll die before any of us go with you, Drake." There it is, the name spoken aloud. William Drake, the man who murdered their mother, the man who's been hunting them across Wyoming, the man Ethan hoped he'd never hear about again. The man on the horse chuckles, slow, cruel. "Ah, Kate, still sharp-tongued. Your mother had the same fire. It didn't serve her well either. Maggie's breath hitches in fury. Sarah presses her hands over her ears. Kate lunges for the door, but Ethan catches her around the waist and yanks her back before she can fling herself into the storm. "You don't talk about our mother!" Kate hisses, trembling with rage. Ethan steps in front of her, putting himself between the sisters and the door. His voice drops low. "Drake, you best ride on." The rain quiets just enough for Drake's mocking voice to carry clearly. "Or what, you'll shoot me through your own barn door. You have no idea the trouble you're standing in the middle of, boy." "I know enough," Ethan says, "and I know the law doesn't reach out here fast enough to save a man like you from a bullet." The silence that follows is sharp as broken glass. Ethan can feel Drake considering his options on the other side of that door, can feel the weight of that calculating mind deciding whether violence is worth the risk. Then Drake says, voice colder now, all pretense of civility gone, "I see. Well then, this ranch will burn before sunrise, and you'll burn with it." He starts to turn his horse, but before he can ride off, another sound cuts through the darkness. More hoofbeats, several of them, moving fast through the mud. Maggie stiffens. Sarah cries out softly in fear. Kate lifts her knife higher. Ethan aims his rifle at the door, ready. 3 riders emerge from the storm and pull up next to Drake. Ethan can see their silhouettes through the cracks in the barnwood, mean-eyed, soaked, armed. One of them shouts above the storm, "Tracks end here. They're inside." "Well then," Drake says, and Ethan can hear the smile in his voice. "Bring me the door." The men dismount. Boots hit mud with wet slaps. Maggie whispers, terrified, "Ethan." Ethan moves quickly, pushing the sisters toward the back wall. "Stay behind the hay bales, all of you. Don't move until I tell you." Kate grabs his arm. "Ethan, you can't fight them alone." He looks at her. His eyes are steady and sure. "I'm not alone." Kate swallows hard and nods. The 3 sisters retreat to the back of the barn, taking cover behind stacked hay. Ethan positions himself behind a heavy support beam. His rifle is a Winchester Model 1873 44-40 caliber. 15 rounds in the magazine. He's a good shot. Better than good. But there are 4 men out there, maybe more, and they have the advantage of numbers. A boot slams against the barn door. Wood cracks. The sound echoes through the space like a gunshot. Another kick. The door splinters slightly. On the 3rd kick, Ethan fires. The blast shatters through the wood. Outside, a man screams and drops. The other 2 dive for cover, cursing. "Kill him!" Drake roars from somewhere in the darkness. Bullets tear through the barn walls. Wood chips rain down. The horses whinny in terror. Sarah sobs into Maggie's shoulder. Kate forces her shaking hands to hold steady on the knife that's useless against bullets. Ethan fires again and again, forcing the men back, keeping them pinned. Outside, Drake shouts to his men, "Set fire to it, smoke them out." "No!" Maggie cries. Ethan curses and runs toward the side wall, but before Drake's men can strike a match, lightning explodes across the sky. In that brilliant flash, everyone sees what's coming. 10 riders crest the hill behind the ranch. Lanterns bounce, rifles raised, voices shouting through the rain. Ethan's heart slams against his ribs. Neighbors, ranchers who live miles apart, but who know Ethan Collier as a good man, and they've seen the truth of what's happening here. One man shouts through the rain, "Collier, we got your back." Drake whips around in shock. He wasn't expecting this, wasn't expecting resistance from the community. For a moment, his carefully laid plans crumble. "Shoot them!" he yells. Gunfire erupts. Chaos in the storm. The night explodes into violence. Ethan wrenches open the side door and shouts, "Now run!" The sisters bolt behind him into the rain, staying low behind the water troughs as bullets light up the night. The ranch becomes a riot of gunfire, shouting thunder and wind. Ethan shields Sarah with his own body as they duck behind a wagon. Maggie grabs Kate's arm, dragging her to cover. Neighbors take positions around the ranch, firing back at Drake's men. Drake's voice rises above it all. "You think you can stop me, you think you can hide them." Then a shot cracks through the storm, different from the others, sharper, more precise. A scream follows. Drake's horse rears violently. Drake himself tumbles from the saddle, hitting the mud with a sickening thud. A rider dismounts nearby, rifle still raised. It's Ben Cartwright, the nearest rancher. His voice cuts through the chaos like a blade. "Drake, this land has had enough of you." Drake tries to stand, but his leg buckles. He goes down again, cursing. Ethan stalks toward him through the rain, the sisters behind him. Sarah trembles. Kate shakes with fury. Maggie holds them both steady. Drake looks up from the mud, soaked, bleeding from where he hit the ground, desperate, and for the first time beaten. Ethan points his rifle at the man who's caused so much pain, so much death, so much suffering. "You're not touching these women again," he says quietly. Drake spits mud eyes burning with hate. "You think they need you. You think you can handle all three." Kate steps forward, knife still in hand. "We don't need a man to handle us," she says, voice steady as steel. "We needed someone to stand with us." She looks at Ethan. "And we choose Ethan Collier." Drake lunges forward, reaching for a gun in his belt. But before he can grab it, Ben Cartwright strikes him across the head with the butt of his rifle. Drake collapses face first into the mud and doesn't move. The storm rages on, but the danger has passed. For now. Ethan turns to the sisters. Mud on their clothes, tears on their cheeks, relief in their eyes, fear still there but fading. "Are you hurt?" he asks. Sarah shakes her head slowly. Maggie wipes her face and whispers, "We're alive." Kate steps closer, breathing hard. "You really think you can handle all three of us, Ethan Collier?" Ethan allows himself a tired, crooked smile. The first smile anyone has seen from him in 3 years. "I reckon," he says quietly. "I already have." Maggie laughs. It's a broken sound, but it's real. Sarah sobs with relief. Kate sheathes her knife, looking at Ethan with something new in her eyes. Trust. Hard-won. Precious. Behind them the neighbors gather, checking injuries, securing the ranch, tying up Drake and his surviving men. And as the storm finally begins to break, the clouds drifting apart to reveal the first pale light of dawn, Ethan realizes something. This lonely ranch isn't empty anymore. His life isn't empty anymore. Because 3 sisters with secret scars and courage he's never seen before have walked into it. And they're not running anymore. They're not alone anymore. Neither is he. The night has been long and terrible. The morning will bring new challenges. Drake is captured, but not defeated. His men are scattered, but not gone. The fight is far from over. But standing there in the mud and the rain with 3 women who refused to break, surrounded by neighbors who chose to stand when they could have hidden, Ethan Collier feels something he hasn't felt in 5 years. Hope. The old man's voice fades. The memory releases its grip. We're back on the porch in 1955. Ethan rocks slowly in his chair. Thomas sits perfectly still, absorbing everything he's heard. "That's how it started," Ethan says quietly. "That's the night I stopped running from my past and started building a future." Thomas looks at the photograph in his lap. The 4 people smiling before a barn. "What happened next?" he asks. Ethan gazes out at the land that's been his home for 70 years, the land he nearly lost, the land he fought for, the land that became so much more than just dirt and grass. What happened next, he says, is the complicated part, the part about choices and consequences, the part about standing when it would be easier to run, the part about learning what family really means. He looks at his grandson. "But that's a story for tomorrow, boy. Sun's getting low. Your grandmother will worry if we're late for supper." Thomas opens his mouth to protest, then closes it. He's learned that his grandfather's stories come in their own time at their own pace. Pushing won't make them come faster. But as they stand and walk toward the house, Thomas can't help but ask one more question. "Grandfather, which one of them became my grandmother?" Ethan pauses on the threshold. A smile plays at the corners of his mouth. Now that, he says, is exactly the right question. And he walks inside, leaving Thomas standing on the porch with the photograph and the beginning of a story that will change everything he thought he knew about his family. About honor, about sacrifice, about love. The first part of the story is complete. But it's only the beginning. The storm has passed. The immediate danger has been survived. But William Drake is not the end of the threat. He's just the opening move in a longer game. Tomorrow Ethan will tell Thomas about what happened after that first night, about the days and weeks that followed, about the deeper dangers that emerged, about choices that cost more than anyone expected. But for now, the sun sets over Wyoming. The ranch stands solid and strong. And somewhere inside, an old man prepares to share more of the truth with a young man who needs to understand where he comes from. Because legacy isn't just about land and cattle and silver deposits. It's about the moments when ordinary people make extraordinary choices. It's about standing when you could run. It's about protecting those who can't protect themselves. It's about 3 women who refused to break and 1 man who refused to let them face the darkness alone. That story continues tomorrow. The eastern sky bleeds pale light across the Wyoming grassland. Dawn comes slow and reluctant, as if even the sun is uncertain about what this day will bring. The storm has passed, leaving behind a world washed clean and strangely quiet. Water drips from the barn roof. Puddles reflect the brightening sky. Everything smells of wet earth and possibility. But in that barn, 4 people know the storm's end means something else entirely. It means Drake's men can move, can see, can attack. Ethan stands at a gap in the barn wall watching. He hasn't slept. None of them have. Sarah dozed fitfully for perhaps an hour, curled against Maggie's shoulder. Kate paced the entire night, knife always in her hand, eyes always on the doors. Now, as dawn breaks, they all know what's coming. "How many do you see?" Maggie asks quietly. She's moved to stand beside Ethan, her voice steady despite everything. Ethan counts carefully. 12 men, maybe more in the trees. Kate joins them, peering through the crack. "He brought an army." "He brought enough to make a point," Ethan corrects. "Drake doesn't do anything small." The men are arranged in a loose circle around the barn, 50 yards out at cardinal points. Some tend horses. Others build small fires brewing coffee. They move with the casual confidence of men who believe they've already won. They're just waiting for their orders. In the center of it all, William Drake sits on his black stallion. Even from this distance, Ethan can see the man's posture, straight, proud, absolutely certain of his victory. Drake is 45 years old, dressed in a black coat that probably cost more than most ranchers make in a year. His silver watch chain catches the morning light. He's clean-shaven in an era when most men wear mustaches. His face is handsome in a cold way, like a marble statue, beautiful but lifeless. "We should have killed him last night," Kate mutters. "We're not killers," Maggie says softly. "He is," Kate snaps back, "and he'll kill us if we give him the chance." Before Maggie can respond, Drake's voice carries across the yard, loud, clear, meant to be heard. "Ethan Collier." All 4 of them freeze. "I know you're awake in there," Drake continues. "I can see smoke from your stove, smell coffee brewing, so let's talk like civilized men, shall we?" Ethan glances at the sisters. Maggie nods slightly. Whatever is said here, they need to hear it. Ethan moves to the barn door. He doesn't open it, just positions himself where his voice will carry through the wood. "I'm listening?" "Good, good." Drake sounds pleased, like a teacher whose student has finally learned a lesson. "I appreciate reasonableness. It's so rare these days." A pause. Then, "I haven't heard that name in years, Collier. Thought you'd learned your lesson back in Ashford." Something cold slides down Ethan's spine. Behind him, he hears Kate's sharp intake of breath. Maggie and Sarah both turn to stare at him. "Don't know what you're talking about," Ethan says carefully. Drake laughs. It's an ugly sound. "Oh, I think you do. Deputy Ethan Collier, my deputy. Until you decided to grow a conscience. How did that work out for you? Your wife still dead, still living alone out here hiding from the world." The words hit like physical blows. Ethan's jaw clenches. His hand tightens on his rifle until his knuckles go white. Kate steps forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "You worked for him." The accusation in her tone is sharp as broken glass. Ethan doesn't turn around, can't look at them right now. It was a long time ago. How long? Maggie demands. 5 years. 5 years, Kate repeats. Her voice has gone dangerously quiet. You worked for the man who murdered our mother 5 years ago, and you didn't think to mention this. It's not what you think, Ethan starts. Then what is it? Kate's hand drops to her knife, not threatening exactly, but not threatening either. Drake's voice interrupts again, clearly enjoying the discord he's creating. Oh, this is delicious. They don't know, do they? Collier don't know who you really are, what you've done, what you failed to do. Shut up, Drake, Ethan says. Why? The truth is so much more interesting than whatever story you've been telling yourself. Deputy Collier witnessed me shoot James Morrison over a water rights dispute. Saw the whole thing. Saw me put a bullet in that farmer's chest. Saw him fall. Saw him die. Silence in the barn. Heavy. Suffocating. And do you know what Deputy Collier did? Drake continues. He tried to arrest me. Can you imagine this nobody deputy trying to arrest me? So I had some men explain the situation to him. Explain how things work in my territory. 4 men, maybe 5. They explained very clearly. Drake pauses, letting that sink in. Is that scar on your arm still there, Collier? Do you remember how you got it? Do you remember the choice I gave you? Ethan's voice is rough. I remember. Leave or die, wasn't it? Simple choice. And you chose to live. You chose to run. You chose to let a murderer go free rather than stand and fight. Kate makes a sound low in her throat. Disgust or anger or both. So here's what I'm offering now, Drake says. His voice shifts, becomes businesslike. Send out the Brennan girls. They come with me peacefully. You keep your land. I'll even pay you $500 for the inconvenience. Everyone walks away. And if I refuse? Ethan asks, though he already knows the answer. Then I take them anyway, and your ranch burns to the ground. Your choice, deputy. Though we both know which choice you'll make. You're a survivor, after all, not a hero. The words hang in the air like smoke. Maggie speaks first. Her voice is controlled, but there's a tremor underneath. Is it true? Did you work for him? Ethan finally turns to face them. The look in their eyes cuts deeper than any knife. Yes. Did you see him kill someone? Kate demands. Yes. And you ran? The contempt in Kate's voice is withering. I had a wife, Ethan says quietly. Emily was sick. She needed medicine care, a place to recover. Drake's men made it clear, leave or they'd kill us both. So I left. I took Emily north and tried to start over. You let a murderer go free, Kate says flatly. I chose my wife's life over a stranger's justice, Ethan corrects. Maybe that makes me a coward. Maybe it does. But I'd make the same choice again if it meant one more day with Emily. Sarah speaks for the first time since dawn. Her voice is small but clear. Where is she now, your wife? Dead, Ethan says. 2 years after we left, consumption took her slow. She died in my arms in this house, and I've lived here alone ever since trying to figure out if I made the right choice. The silence that follows is different now. Not hostile exactly, but not forgiven either. Why should we trust you? Maggie asks. Why should we believe you won't make the same choice again, won't trade us for your safety? Ethan meets her eyes steadily. Because Emily's gone. I don't have that excuse anymore. And because 5 years ago I ran from Drake, this time I won't. Words, Kate spits. Just words. Then watch my actions, Ethan says. Drake's giving us until noon to decide. That's about 4 hours. In that time I'm going to fortify this barn. I'm going to set up defenses. I'm going to prepare to fight. And when noon comes, I'm going to tell him no. You 3 can stay or go. That's your choice. But I'm done running. Outside, Drake calls again. You have until noon, Collier High son, make your choice. The sound of hoofbeats. Drake's men fanning out, creating a perimeter around the barn, setting up camp, fires being built, Coffee being poured, the casual preparations of men settling in for a siege. Maggie, Kate, and Sarah huddle together, speaking in low voices. Ethan gives them space. He checks his weapons instead. Winchester rifle, Colt Peacemaker at his hip, Sharp's rifle for long range, ammunition counted and recounted. Everything that can be done, being done. After several minutes, Maggie approaches. "We talked," she says. "Kate wants to leave, doesn't trust you. Sarah's too scared to have an opinion. I'm the tiebreaker." "And," Ethan asks, "and I think a man who admits his failures is more trustworthy than one who pretends to be perfect. I think you could have turned us over last night and didn't. I think Drake clearly hates you, which means you're probably on the right side." She pauses. "But mostly I think we're out of options. We can't fight Drake alone. We can barely run anymore, so we're staying, for now." Ethan nods. "Fair enough. But if you betray us," Kate adds from behind Maggie, "I'll put this knife in your heart myself." "Understood," Ethan says simply. The morning passes in tense preparation. Ethan shows them defensive positions, windows with good sight lines, places to take cover, the root cellar entrance hidden under hay bales in case they need to evacuate. Then around 9 o'clock something unexpected happens. More riders appear on the eastern horizon. Not Drake's men. Different. Ethan recognizes them immediately. Ben Cartwright leads a group of 6 ranchers, all armed, all looking grim and determined. Drake's men scramble to intercept them, but Ben rides right through their line. He doesn't even look at them, just heads straight for the barn, dismounts, and pounds on the door. "Ethan, Ben Cartwright here." Ethan opens the door a crack. Ben slips inside quickly. The older man is 55, gray-bearded with the weathered face of someone who spent a lifetime working under the Wyoming sun. He carries a Sharp's rifle like it's part of his arm. "Got your message," Ben says without preamble. "Sent that boy Billy to my place before the storm. He said you had trouble coming. Looks like he was right." "Appreciate you coming," Ethan says. Ben finally notices the 3 women. His eyes widen slightly, but he's too much of a gentleman to stare. He nods politely. "Ma'am, ladies." Maggie steps forward. "Margaret Sr., these are my sisters, Kate and Sarah." Recognition flashes in Ben's eyes. "Brennan, I knew your father Thomas. Good man. Heard about your mother. I'm sorry." "Thank you," Maggie says quietly. Ben turns back to Ethan. "So Drake's finally made his move. Figured it was coming. He's been consolidating power for years. Your place is next to the Morrison land, isn't it?" "Was," Ethan corrects. "James Morrison's dead. Drake killed him 5 years ago." Ben's expression darkens. "I'd heard rumors. Never had proof." "I have proof," Ethan says quietly. "I saw it happen." Outside, Drake's voice calls out again, this time addressing Ben. "Cartwright, this is private business. No concern of yours." Ben moves to the door and shouts back, "Any business on my neighbor's land is my business, Drake." "I have legal claim to this property," Drake responds. "Collier's deed has irregularities." "I have 6 armed men," Ben counters. "You want to test legal versus lead." The standoff shifts palpably. Now it's not 4 defenders against 12 attackers. It's 10 defenders against 12. The odds are evening. Over the next 2 hours, more neighbors arrive, 3 more ranchers. Then the Morrison widow and her 2 sons. By 11 o'clock, there are 13 defenders total. Drake's frustration is visible even from a distance. He can't attack without essentially declaring war on half the county. But he won't back down either. His pride won't allow it. At 11:30, one of Drake's men rides off toward town, probably to get more guns, more men, more firepower. Ethan watches him go and knows time is running out. At noon exactly, Drake calls out his final offer. "Collier, time's up. What's your answer?" Ethan steps outside the barn. Not far, just far enough to be seen clearly. Ben and 2 other ranchers flank him, rifles ready. "My answer is no," Ethan says. His voice carries across the yard. Clear, firm, final. "These women are under my protection. You want them, you'll have to go through me." Drake's face twists with rage. "Then you've chosen death." "No," Ethan says. "I've chosen to stand. There's a difference." For a moment, everything is perfectly still, both sides poised, waiting, the moment balanced on a knife edge. Then Drake signals his men. "Burn them out." 2 men light torches. They advance toward the barn, intending to set fire to the dry grass around it. Sarah, watching from a window, aims her rifle, the Springfield she assembled so quickly last night. Her hands are steadier now, less shaking, more resolve. "Northeast man," Ethan murmurs. 80 yards. Sarah breathes out slowly, squeezes the trigger. The crack of the rifle splits the air. The man with the torch drops it, grabbing his shoulder, screaming. The torch falls into mud and goes out. All 12 of Drake's men dive for cover, and the siege truly begins. Gunfire erupts from all sides. Drake's men firing at the barn, defenders firing back. The air fills with smoke and noise and chaos. Sarah fires 3 times, 2 hits, both shoulder wounds deliberately non-lethal. The girl who seemed so fragile is methodical, precise, deadly. Maggie works the lever on her father's Henry rifle with practiced efficiency. 5 shots, suppressing fire, keeping attackers pinned down. Kate, at a ground-level window, waits for anyone who gets too close. When one man makes a run at the barn, she fires the shotgun. The buckshot catches him in the legs. He goes down screaming. Ethan moves between positions, covering whoever needs to reload. His Winchester barks steadily, controlled, efficient. The fight lasts perhaps 15 minutes, but it feels like hours. When the smoke clears, 3 of Drake's men are wounded, none dead, but all out of the fight. The rest have pulled back to 100 yards, out of easy rifle range. Drake, from his position behind a water trough, reassesses. A direct assault will cost him too many men. He needs a different strategy. "Girls," he shouts, "you're orphans now. Where will you go? What will you do? I'm offering you a home, food security. All I ask is cooperation." Sarah's hands start shaking again. The word cooperation, the way Drake says it, makes her skin crawl. Memories of the men who came to their house, who put hands on her, who said Drake wanted to make a new arrangement. Maggie sees her sister's distress and wraps an arm around her. "Don't listen," she whispers fiercely. "Don't listen to him." But Drake keeps talking, his voice smooth, persuasive, wearing down resistance with words instead of bullets. "Collier can't protect you forever. When the ammunition runs out, my men will come in. And Catherine, sweet Sarah, lovely Margaret Sr., I promise you they won't be gentle. Is that what you want? Is that the fate you choose?" The threat is clear, explicit, horrifying. Sarah starts crying, not loud, just silent tears running down her face. Kate's face goes white with rage. "I'll kill him," she whispers. "I'll kill him myself." Then at 10:30 in the morning, the sound of more horses approaching from the east. Everyone tenses. More of Drake's men. Reinforcements. But the voice that calls out is familiar. Riders, 6 men, armed. It's Ben's son, riding hard with 5 other ranchers. Drake's men wheel around confused. Suddenly, they're not surrounding the barn anymore. They're caught between defenders inside and new arrivals outside. Ben Cartwright walks out of the barn, rifle in hand. He doesn't aim at anyone, just walks calmly into the open space between the 2 groups. "Drake," he calls, "you've attacked a man's property, wounded his guests, threatened women, in front of witnesses." "This is a legal matter," Drake insists. "A property dispute." "Then settle it in court," Ben says. "Not with guns." Drake's smile is cold. "The courts are mine." "Federal courts aren't," Ben counters. "I sent a telegram to Denver yesterday. Federal marshals coming. Should be here in 3 days. You willing to wait that long?" Drake's expression flickers. Just for a moment. Uncertainty. He didn't expect federal involvement, but he recovers quickly. 3 days. A lot can happen in 3 days. "Yes," Ben agrees. "It can." The standoff continues. Both sides armed. Both sides ready. Neither willing to fire the first shot that would turn this into a bloodbath. Hours pass. The sun climbs higher. The heat builds. Around 1 o'clock, Drake makes his move. Not a frontal assault. Something more insidious. His men start setting small fires, not to the barn. That would be too obvious with all the witnesses. Instead, they set fire to the grass around the property, to fences, to anything that will burn. The autumn grass is dry despite last night's rain. It catches quickly. Flames spread, pushed by a steady wind toward the barn. "We can't stay here," Maggie says, watching smoke billow closer. "The barn will be surrounded by fire in minutes." Ethan makes a quick decision. "Root cellar, everyone, now." "What about the horses?" Kate asks. "Turn them loose. They'll run from the fire." It's a painful choice. Those horses represent significant investment, but lives matter more than property. Kate runs to the stalls, opening each one. The horses, already terrified by the smoke bolt out the back door, Ethan opens. All 6 of them stampede into the open. The sudden movement causes chaos. Drake's men scatter, trying to avoid being trampled. In the confusion, Ethan, the 3 sisters, and 2 of Ben's men make a run for the root cellar. Bullets kick up dirt around them. Sarah cries out and stumbles. Blood blooms on her upper arm. "I'm hit," she gasps. "Keep moving," Ethan shouts. They make it to the cellar. Ethan yanks the heavy door open. Everyone tumbles inside. He slams it shut just as more bullets slam into the wood. Inside the cellar is dark and cool. 10 feet by 12, 8 feet deep. Earthen walls reinforced with timber beams. Shelves lined with preserved food. Barrels of water. Ammunition. 2 lanterns. Ethan lights one lantern, keeping the flame low. Maggie immediately tends to Sarah's wound. The bullet grazed her upper arm. Painful, but not serious. She tears cloth for a bandage while Kate holds Sarah steady. "Whiskey?" Ethan says, handing over a bottle. Maggie pours it over the wound. Sarah gasps, but doesn't cry out. "You're doing good," Kate tells her sister. "You're so strong." Sarah looks at her eyes wide. "I shot someone. 3 someones." "You protected your family," Kate says firmly. "That's what Papa taught us." "Papa would be proud," Maggie adds, tying the bandage tight. The words seem to steady Sarah. She nods, breathing deep. Above them, they can hear Drake's men searching. Boots on the ground. Voices calling. The barn collapsing as fire consumes it. 70 years of work, of memories of life burning. Ethan leans against the wall, eyes closed. He's lost the barn. Maybe the house too. Everything he's built since Emily died. Everything that connected him to her memory. But when he opens his eyes and sees the 3 sisters huddled together, alive and relatively safe, he knows it was worth it. "There's a tunnel," he says quietly. "Dug it myself 2 years ago. Paranoid maybe, but useful now. Comes out in the tree line 50 yards north." "Where does it lead?" Maggie asks. "Away," Ethan says simply. "If they find this cellar, you 3 go through that tunnel. Run and don't stop." "What about you?" Kate demands. "I'll hold them here." "No," Kate says flatly. "We fight together or we don't fight at all." "Kate." "You said you wouldn't run," she interrupts. "We're saying the same thing. We stand together." Maggie and Sarah both nod agreement. Ethan looks at these 3 women. Yesterday they were strangers. Today they're willing to die with him rather than abandon him. Something shifts in his chest. Something he thought died with Emily. Not romantic love. Something different. Something like family. "All right," he says quietly. "Together then." Hours pass underground. They take turns sleeping in shifts. Maggie first, then Sarah, then Kate. Ethan doesn't sleep. Can't. His mind is too busy calculating odds, planning next moves, waiting for the inevitable moment when Drake's men find them. But above ground, something else is happening. Ben Cartwright confronts Drake directly. "You burned a man's property, in front of 30 witnesses. That's arson, Drake. That's a hanging offense." "I was defending myself," Drake insists. "Call your shot first." "That's not what these men saw," Ben says, gesturing to the assembled ranchers. For the first time, Drake looks genuinely worried. Legal charges are one thing when you control the courts. But with federal marshals coming with witnesses willing to testify, even his power has limits. Night falls. Both groups maintain their positions. Drake's men camp on the property. Ben's men camp opposite. Tension thick enough to cut. In the root cellar, Ethan makes a decision. "We can wait for the marshal," he says quietly. 3 days. Hope Drake doesn't find us before then, or we can end this tonight." "How?" Maggie asks. "We take Drake himself, capture him, use him as leverage." "That's insane," Kate says. But she doesn't sound opposed, she sounds interested. "It's risky," Ethan agrees, "but it's a better risk than waiting. Drake's men are loyal to money, not principle. Without Drake to pay them, they'll scatter." "What's the plan?" Maggie asks. Ethan begins to outline it. A nighttime raid, using the tunnel to exit unseen, circling around to Drake's position, taking him by surprise. It's a long shot, a desperate gamble, but doing nothing feels worse. They wait until 2 in the morning, the darkest part of the night, when exhaustion makes even sentries drowsy. One by one they slip through the tunnel, Sarah first being the smallest and quietest, then Kate, then Maggie. Ethan last, making sure the exit is concealed behind them. They emerge in the tree line exactly as planned. The ranch is visible in the distance, small fires burning, men sleeping, 2 sentries visible, both looking half asleep. Sarah climbs an oak tree 80 yards from the house. She sets up her Springfield rifle, settling into position. She'll provide cover fire if needed. The other 3 move through shadows, slow, careful, every step deliberate. They're 50 feet from the house when a sentry spots them. A young man with nervous eyes. He raises his rifle. Ethan freezes, ready to fight. But the young man doesn't fire. Instead, he lowers the rifle slowly. "Collier," he whispers. His voice is shaking. "You killed my father." Ethan recognizes him now. Jacob Morrison, James Morrison's son. The same James Morrison that Drake murdered 5 years ago. "I didn't kill your father," Ethan says quietly. "Drake did." "Drake told me you did," Jacob says. "Said you were a corrupt deputy. Said you murdered him and blamed it on Drake. And you believed him." Jacob's face twists with confusion and pain. "I was 18. I had no money. Drake offered me a job, said he'd take care of me. I believed everything he said." "But you don't anymore," Ethan guesses. "I heard you," Jacob says. "In the barn. Heard what you said to those women. Heard how you stood up to Drake. He's never stood up to anyone, always takes what he wants, always wins." Jacob looks at the rifle in his hands. "Drake lied, didn't he?" "Yes," Ethan says simply. "I watched him shoot your father, watched him die. I should have stopped it, should have fought. I didn't. I ran instead. I've regretted it every day since." "Why didn't you fight?" Jacob asks. "Because I was afraid," Ethan admits. "Because I chose to live over doing what was right. I'm not proud of it." Jacob is quiet for a long moment. Then he makes a decision. "My father would want justice, not revenge." He lowers his rifle completely. "Drake's inside, alone, sleeping in your house like he already owns it. I'll let you through. I'll make sure my men don't interfere." "Why?" Kate asks suspiciously. Jacob looks at her, really looks at her. "Because I'm tired of being afraid too." He opens the door to the house quietly. Inside, a single candle burns. Drake sits at Ethan's desk writing, forging more documents probably, more deeds, more claims to property that isn't his. Drake looks up as they enter. For a moment shock registers on his face, then rage. He reaches for the gun on the desk. Kate is faster. Her shotgun comes up, barrel pointed at Drake's head. "Don't," she says quietly. Drake frees his hand inches from the weapon. Ethan steps forward. "It's over, Drake." "Over?" Drake laughs, but it sounds forced. "You think this changes anything? My men will kill you all." "No, they won't," Jacob says, appearing in the doorway. "Because I'm done following your orders." Drake's face goes white. "You traitor!" "You murdered my father," Jacob says, each word precise, hard. "You lied to me, used me. I'm done." Maggie moves to the desk and gathers the papers Drake was writing. More forged deeds, more fake claims, Evidence of fraud on a massive scale. Enough to hang you 3 times over, she says quietly. They tie Drake with rope, gag him to stop his threats. Jacob helps his hands steady now that he's made his choice. When the sun rises, Ben Cartwright's men see Drake captured. Some of Drake's hired guns flee immediately. Others, confused and leaderless, simply wait to see what happens next. The siege is over. Drake is defeated. The immediate danger has passed. But the cost is high. Ethan's barn is completely destroyed. $800 to rebuild. 2 horses died from smoke inhalation. 40 acres of grass burned. The house is damaged but repairable. Bullet holes in the walls, broken windows, blood on the floor. Total damage $1,200, more than a year's income. But they're alive, all of them. Bruised, exhausted, traumatized, but alive. Over the next 3 days they wait for the marshal. The community helps, brings food, offers shelter, begins plans for a barn raising. The sisters tend the wounded. Sarah's arm heals quickly. She grows stronger each day, more confident, less afraid. Kate works alongside the men helping clear debris, shocking some, impressing others. Maggie organizes everything with quiet efficiency, managing people, resources, recovery. And Ethan watches them integrate into his community, into his life, and realizes something profound. He's not alone anymore. Maybe he'll never be alone again. On October 20th, the federal marshal arrives. James Cooper is a serious man with hard eyes and no patience for corruption. He reviews the evidence, questions witnesses, searches Drake's office in town. What he finds is damning. 15 forged deeds, 8 false debt claims, records of bribes paid to local officials, a systematic pattern of fraud, theft, and murder. Drake faces multiple charges, 2 counts of murder, 14 counts of fraud, 6 counts of arson, extortion, conspiracy. The Brennan sisters' land is declared legally theirs. Drake's claim is voided. His assets are seized. $3,000 in damages are awarded to the sisters. Ethan's record is cleared. His deputy badge from 1880 is returned to him. The marshal even offers him his job back. Ethan declines. "I'm a rancher now," he says simply. But as the marshal's wagon carries Drake away, the defeated man manages one final threat. "I have family," he calls through the bars. "Associates, this isn't over." Maggie stands tall watching him go. "Let them come." Drake smiles coldly, a knowing smile, like he can see a future they can't. Then he's gone, disappearing down the road toward Denver and whatever justice awaits him there. The danger has passed, the immediate crisis resolved. But that smile, that warning, it lingers in the air like smoke. Ethan turns to the sisters. They've been through hell together, fought together, bled together, and now they stand at a crossroads. "What will you do now?" he asks quietly. Maggie looks at her sisters, then at the burned ruins of the barn, the damaged house, the land that's already beginning to heal. "We have decisions to make," she says, "about our land, about our future, about whether we keep running or finally stand still." "You're welcome to stay," Ethan offers, "as long as you need." Kate meets his eyes. Something has changed between them, not romance, but respect, trust, partnership. "We might take you up on that," she says. Sarah nods agreement. For the first time in days, she smiles. Small, but real. The sun sets over Wyoming. The ranch stands damaged, but not destroyed. And 4 people who started as strangers begin to transform into something else. Something like family. On the porch in 1955, old Ethan pauses in his telling. Thomas sits forward, completely absorbed. "So you beat Drake," Thomas says. "You won." "We survived the first battle," Ethan corrects. "But war, that was just beginning." "What do you mean?" "I mean Drake had a brother, Richard Drake. And Richard was everything William wasn't. Smart, sophisticated, patient, and absolutely determined to finish what his brother started." Thomas's eyes widen. "When did he come?" 6 weeks later, Ethan says. December of 1885. And he brought something William never had: legal expertise, real lawyers, legitimate-looking claims. But you beat him too, right? Ethan's smile is complicated. Eventually, but it cost us, cost all of us. Some prices are paid in money, some in blood, some in choices that change who you are forever. He stands slowly, joints creaking. That's enough for tonight, boy. Tomorrow I'll tell you about Richard Drake, about the courthouse battle, about the choices your grandmother made that saved us all. Which grandmother? Thomas asks again, desperate to know. Ethan just smiles. Patience. Some stories need to unfold in their own time. He walks inside, leaving Thomas on the porch with the lengthening shadows and a story only half told. A story about courage and consequence, about standing when it's easier to run, about 3 women who refused to break and 1 man who finally stopped running. The story continues tomorrow, but for now the second part is complete. 6 weeks pass like water through fingers. The burned grass begins to show green shoots. The damaged house is repaired window by window, board by board. The community comes together in the way frontier communities do, understanding that today's help will be tomorrow's salvation when their own crisis comes. But the barn remains a skeleton of blackened timber. Rebuilding will take time, money, resources they don't quite have yet. December arrives with the first snow. Just a dusting at first, coating the land in white that makes everything look clean and new. The air turns sharp and cold. Mornings require 2 layers of clothes and coffee strong enough to wake the dead. The 3 sisters are still there, still in Ethan's house. What started as temporary shelter has become something else, something undefined. They sleep in the 2 bedrooms while Ethan takes the couch. They eat breakfast together at dawn. They work the land together through the day. And at night they sit by the fire and don't talk about the future because none of them know what it holds. Maggie has taken over the books and accounts. She has a mind for numbers, for organization, for seeing patterns others miss. She files claims for additional damages against Drake's estate, corresponds with lawyers in Denver about mining rights for the silver on their land 40 miles south. Kate works with the horses. She's broken 2 new Mustangs, gentling them with patience Ethan didn't know she possessed. She repairs fences, fixes tools, hunts deer for winter meat. She's brought back 3 in the past month, enough to fill the smokehouse. The men in town don't quite know what to make of her. A woman in riding pants who can outshoot most of them. But they respect her. You can see it in how they step aside when she walks past. Sarah has surprised everyone most of all. The fragile girl from that first night has hardened into something stronger. She cooks from her mother's old recipes, filling the house with smells that make Maggie cry quietly when she thinks no one sees. She tends wounds, makes poultices and tonics from herbs she gathers, and every evening she cleans and oils the guns, all of them, methodically, her hands steady and sure. Ethan watches them transform his empty house into something that feels almost like a home. He doesn't quite know what to do with that feeling, doesn't know if he deserves it, but he's stopped questioning it out loud. On the morning of December 15th, the first sign of new trouble arrives. Ethan is mending fence on the north pasture when he finds it, a section cut cleanly, not damaged by weather or animals, cut with a knife or wire cutters, deliberate. His stomach tightens. He checks the other fences, finds 2 more sections cut. That afternoon they discover one of the Hereford cows shot, not taken for meat, just killed and left. A message carved into the nearby fence post with a knife: Drake sends his regards. Kate sees it and goes white with rage. His men, the ones who escaped. Maybe, Ethan says, but his gut tells him it's something worse. That evening Ben Cartwright brings news from town. Man arrived on the train yesterday, came from Kansas City, says he's William Drake's brother, Richard Drake. The name hangs in the air like a curse. What's he doing here? Maggie asks. Settling his brother's affairs, he says. Offered the town $5,000 to build a new schoolhouse, had dinner with the mayor, shook hands with half the businessmen in Red Creek. Ben's expression is grim. He's not like William. This one's smart, polished, dangerous in a different way. What does he want? Sarah asks quietly. Same thing William wanted, Ben says. Your land. Ethan's land. Everything his brother tried to take by force. Only Richard's going to do it legal. Or what looks legal anyway. That night, Ethan barely sleeps. He knows men like Richard Drake. The kind who use lawyers instead of guns. Who kill you with paperwork instead of bullets. Who smile while they destroy you. On December 20th, the sisters receive official notice. They're being sued. 3 separate lawsuits filed in Red Creek Courthouse. The first claims defamation. Says they falsely accused William Drake of murder destroying his reputation. Demands $10,000 in damages. The second claims they owe debts their mother incurred. Backed by documents that look official. Demands payment of $8,000. The third is against Ethan. Claims he destroyed property during the siege, the barn that burned. Demands compensation of $1,200. This is insane, Kate says, reading the papers. William Drake murdered our mother. He burned Ethan's barn himself. But can you prove it in court? Maggie asks quietly. With lawyers and judges and rules of evidence? Silence answers her. We fought guns, Kate says bitterly. Now we have to fight paper. And paper might kill us just as dead. Christmas passes grimly. The community tries to celebrate, but the shadow of the lawsuits hangs over everything. Neighbors bring food, offer support. But support doesn't pay legal fees, doesn't win court cases. On January 5, 1886, Richard Drake comes to the ranch himself. He arrives in a carriage, a real carriage, not a wagon, pulled by matched gray horses. He's dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Ethan makes in 6 months. 50 years old, clean-shaven, with silver hair at his temples and eyes like blue ice. He knocks on the door politely, waits to be invited in. Ethan answers. The 2 men study each other. Richard is everything William wasn't. Cultured, educated. The kind of man who knows which fork to use at fancy dinners and how to quote Shakespeare while cutting your throat. Mr. Collier, Richard says. His voice is smooth as honey. Might I have a moment of your time? Depends on what you want. To apologize. Richard's smile is practiced. Perfect. My brother was unwell, mentally disturbed. What he did to you, to these young ladies, was inexcusable. I'm here to make amends. By suing us. Kate appears behind Ethan, arms crossed. Richard's eyes flick to her. Something predatory moves behind his pleasant expression there and gone in an instant. Legal matters must be settled properly, but I'm hoping we can reach an agreement, one that benefits everyone. We're not interested, Maggie says, joining Kate. You haven't heard my offer, Richard says. He produces papers from his coat. I'm willing to drop all lawsuits, pay you $5,000 for your land, forgive all alleged debts. You'd be free to start fresh somewhere else, anywhere you choose. Our land isn't for sale, Maggie says flatly. Everything is for sale at the right price, Richard counters. I'm offering you more than it's worth, more than you'll ever get from anyone else. No. Richard's smile doesn't waver, but his eyes go cold. Then we'll settle this in court, and I assure you the law will not be kind. My brother may have been crude, but I am not. I know every legal trick, every loophole, every judge in this territory. He tips his hat. Good day. I'll see you in court. He leaves in his expensive carriage, and somehow the threat feels worse than anything William ever said. The trial is set for February 3rd, 6 weeks to prepare. Ethan and the sisters pool their resources. Ethan has saved $1,200 over the years. The sisters have the $3,000 awarded to them from Drake's estate seizure. Total $4,200. They need a lawyer. The only one willing to take their case against a Drake is Evelyn Carter. She's 38 years old, the first female lawyer in Wyoming, and she charges $200 for a case this complex. They hire her immediately. Evelyn is sharp as broken glass and twice as dangerous. She spends 2 weeks reviewing every document, every deed, every claim. She interviews witnesses, takes statements, builds their defense piece by piece. On January 20th, she calls them to her office in Red Creek. I have good news and bad news, she says without preamble. Good news, William Drake's crimes are well documented, multiple witnesses, Clear evidence of murder and fraud. And the bad news, Maggie asks, Richard's lawsuit isn't about William. It's about technicalities. Your mother's debt claims are based on forged documents, but proving forgery requires expert testimony we can't afford. The defamation suit claims you damaged William's reputation, which is absurd, but reputation is subjective in court. Evelyn pauses. And Ethan, your homestead claim has a problem. What kind of problem? The filing date is wrong. Should be June 10, 1879. Your paperwork says June 11th. 1 day off. Probably a clerical error. But technically, it invalidates your deed. The room goes silent. What does that mean? Kate asks. It means Richard Drake can claim the land is unclaimed, that he has as much right to purchase it as anyone. Ethan feels the ground shift under his feet. Everything he's built, everything he's fought for, invalidated by a single day's mistake on a government form. Can we fix it? Maggie asks. We can try, but it takes time, months, maybe years, and Richard will fight us every step. So we're losing, Sarah says quietly. Not yet, Evelyn says. But we need something stronger, something that puts Richard on the defensive instead of us. Over the next 2 weeks, Maggie does something brilliant. She travels to Denver, to the federal land office, and she doesn't just look up Ethan's claim or her family's land. She looks up every single property the Drake family has acquired in the past 20 years. What she finds changes everything. She returns on February 1st, 2 days before the trial. Her eyes are bright with something that looks like hope. I found it, she says, spreading documents across Ethan's kitchen table. Richard Drake has acquired 8 properties in the past 10 years. All of them have the same kind of clerical errors. Filing dates off by 1 day. Boundary descriptions with slight discrepancies, errors that just happen to benefit Drake when he challenges the titles. He's been doing this for years, Kate says, understanding immediately. It's not bad luck or mistakes, it's a system. Exactly, Maggie confirms. He or his lawyers create the errors intentionally, then they exploit them later to claim the land. Can you prove it? Ethan asks. The pattern proves itself. 8 properties. 8 convenient errors, 8 cases where Drake challenged the titles and won. The odds of that being coincidence are astronomical. Evelyn Carter looks at the documents and smiles. It's a terrifying smile. This is good. This is very good. We don't just defend now, we attack. February 3rd arrives cold and clear. The courthouse in Red Creek is small, built for a town of 500 people, not the 100 who show up to watch this trial. They pack the gallery, standing in the aisles, crowding the windows. This isn't just about land anymore. It's about whether the Drakes can keep taking whatever they want, whether ordinary people can stand against money and power and win. Judge Henry Morrison presides. He's Jacob Morrison's uncle, which Richard's lawyer immediately challenges. But the only other judge is in Cheyenne, 3 days' travel away. The trial proceeds. Richard Drake sits at the plaintiff's table with 2 lawyers. Both Stanford educated, both expensive, both very good at their jobs. Ethan and the sisters sit with Evelyn. They look outmatched, outgunned, outlawyered. But Evelyn has something Richard doesn't expect. The truth, and the courage to speak it. The trial lasts 3 days. Richard's lawyers present their case first. They call witnesses who claim Margaret Brennan owed money. They produce documents showing debts. They argue that her daughters are trying to avoid legitimate financial obligations. They call witnesses who swear William Drake was a good man, charitable, kind, unjustly accused by bitter women. They present Ethan's homestead paperwork and point out the error. Argue the land is therefore unclaimed. It's convincing, professional, well-rehearsed. Then Evelyn stands. She calls Jacob Morrison to the stand. He testifies about his father's murder, about watching William Drake shoot an unarmed man, about Ethan trying to stop it and being beaten for his courage. She calls Ben Cartwright and a dozen other ranchers. They testify about William's threats, his violence, his systematic campaign of terror. She presents the forged debt documents and shows line by line how they're false, how signatures are copied, how dates are altered, how the entire thing is a fabrication. Richard's lawyers object repeatedly, but the evidence is overwhelming. Then Evelyn plays her trump card. She presents Maggie's research, shows the pattern of 8 properties, 8 convenient errors, 8 Drake victories. This isn't isolated incompetence, she argues. This is systematic fraud. Richard Drake and his associates have been manipulating land records for a decade, creating errors, exploiting them, stealing property through legal technicalities. Richard's lead lawyer stands. Objection. This is speculation. Conspiracy theory. There's no proof Mr. Richard Drake was involved in any wrongdoing. Then explain the pattern, Evelyn says calmly. Explain how 8 different land claims filed by 8 different people all have similar errors that benefit the Drake family. Explain the mathematical impossibility of that being coincidence. The courtroom erupts, spectators shouting, Judge Morrison pounding his gavel, Richard Drake sitting very still, his perfect mask finally cracking. The trial continues into the evening. Witnesses are recalled, documents are examined and re-examined. Experts testify about handwriting, about land law, about statistical probability. On the 3rd day, Judge Morrison makes his ruling. He clears William Drake's estate of all claims against the Brennan sisters. Rules the debts fraudulent. Awards the sisters an additional $5,000 in damages. He validates Ethan's homestead claim despite the clerical error. Rules that good faith settlement for 5 years outweighs a 1-day filing discrepancy. And then he does something unexpected. He orders a federal investigation into all Drake family land acquisitions, subpoenas Richard Drake's records, freezes his assets pending review. Richard stands face white with rage. This is a travesty. I'll appeal. I'll take this to the Territorial Supreme Court. You'll sit down, Judge Morrison says quietly, or I'll hold you in contempt. Richard sits, but his eyes promise this isn't over. 2 weeks later, federal investigators arrive. They spend a month reviewing records. What they find is worse than anyone imagined. 23 properties acquired through fraud, 15 forged documents, 8 false debt claims, bribes paid to 6 different county clerks, a conspiracy spanning 2 decades and involving both Drake brothers. Richard Drake is arrested on March 15th, charged with 14 counts of fraud, 6 counts of bribery, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit murder. He's sentenced to 10 years in federal prison, $50,000 in fines. All fraudulently acquired property returned to rightful owners. The Drake empire crumbles overnight. For the Brennan sisters, their land is legally theirs, 4,800 acres, plus $8,000 in damages and recovered assets. They're wealthy by frontier standards, independent, free. For Ethan, his homestead is secured, his title clear. He owns his land free and clear. They've won, completely, definitively. But victory has costs. On March 12th, William Drake is hanged for the murder of Margaret Brennan Sr. The execution happens in Denver, public, well-attended. The sisters go to witness it. They need to see justice done, need the closure. Ethan goes with them, stands beside them as the trapdoor drops, as William Drake's neck snaps, as the man who murdered their mother pays the ultimate price. Sarah cries, not for Drake, but for everything, for her mother, for the childhood stolen from them, for the innocence lost. She cries for all of it, and Maggie holds her while Kate stares at Drake's body with dry eyes. On the ride home, no one speaks. What is there to say? Justice is done. But it doesn't bring their mother back, doesn't erase the trauma, doesn't heal the wounds. It just ends the chapter, allows a new one to begin. Spring comes to Wyoming with a rush of green and growth. The land heals faster than the people do. But slowly, day by day, they all begin to breathe easier. Sarah transforms completely. The fragile girl is gone, replaced by a woman who knows her own strength. She teaches herself advanced marksmanship, helps train the neighbor children in basic shooting, starts a small medicinal practice helping families who can't afford doctors. "I'm not afraid anymore," she tells Ethan one evening. "For the first time in my life, I'm not afraid." Kate finds peace in the work, physical labor that exhausts the body and quiets the mind. She and Ethan work side by side rebuilding the barn, not speaking much, not needing to. The partnership of shared purpose. One day she says, "I forgive myself for not protecting Mama, for not seeing Drake's evil sooner. I forgive myself." It's the first time Ethan has heard her speak of forgiveness. Maggie channels everything into building something lasting. She negotiates contracts for the silver mining on their land, establishes legal partnerships, creates a business structure that will outlast them all. "Father would be proud," she says, looking at the papers. "Mama too. We didn't just survive, we built something." In June of 1886, 8 months after that first stormy night, the four of them sit on the porch of the completed house. The new barn stands solid and strong. The cattle are healthy, the horses are thriving, the land is healing. "What happens now?" Sarah asks. It's a good question. They've been so focused on survival, on fighting, on winning, that none of them have thought about after. "Our land is south," Maggie says slowly. 4,800 acres. We should go back, reclaim it, work it." "But you're welcome here," Ethan says quickly, "for as long as you want." "We know," Kate says. "But Maggie's right. That land is our legacy, our mother's legacy. We can't abandon it." Silence falls, comfortable but tinged with sadness. They've become family over these months. Losing that feels wrong. Then Sarah asks, "What if we didn't choose? What if we combined everything?" "What do you mean?" Ethan asks. "Partnership," Sarah says. "Your land here, our land there. Operated together. Collier Brennan Holdings, all of us, equal partners." Maggie sits up straighter. "That could work. Combined resources, shared labor. The silver mine would fund operations. This ranch would be the base. We'd need to split time between properties," Kate says. "Rotate who manages what." "But we'd all have a stake," Sarah says. "All have a voice." They look at Ethan. It's his land they're talking about sharing, his life they're asking to intertwine with theirs permanently. Ethan looks at each of them. Sarah, who found her courage. Kate, who found her peace. Maggie, who found her purpose. 3 women who changed his life simply by running through a storm. "Equal partnership," he says firmly. "All 4 names on the deed. Equal say in every decision. No man making choices for you. No one person in charge." "Agreed?" Maggie says. "Agreed?" Kate echoes. "Agreed," Sarah finishes. They shake hands, all 4 of them. A formal agreement that's also a promise. They're family now, not by blood, by choice. The years that follow are good ones. Hard work, certainly. Challenges, absolutely. But good. The silver mine on the southern property proves profitable. Not wildly so, but steady. Enough to support operations fund expansions, provide security. The ranch grows. More cattle, more horses, more land acquired legitimately through purchase and proof. Maggie marries Ben Cartwright's son in 1888. A good man, a good marriage. They have 4 children. Live on the southern property managing the mine. Sarah marries Jacob Morrison in 1887, the young man who chose justice over revenge. They have 5 children. Live in Red Creek, where Sarah's medical practice grows into a real clinic. Kate never marries. She runs the northern ranch with Ethan, partners in business, friends in life. She's content with that, more than content. She's happy, and Ethan never remarries. Emily's memory stays with him, but it's no longer a wound, just a gentle sadness, a remembrance of love that was and can't be again. But he's not alone. He has 3 sisters who became family, nieces and nephews who call him Uncle Ethan, a community that respects him, a legacy being built. On the porch in 1955, old Ethan finishes his story. Thomas has been silent for an hour, absorbing every word. "So you didn't marry any of them," Thomas says finally. No. Ethan confirms. What we built was better than marriage. It was family by choice, partnership, respect, love of a different kind. But then who's my grandmother? Ethan smiles. Your grandmother was Emily, my first wife. She died before you were born, before your father was even 5 years old. But she gave me your father, and your father gave me you. But the sisters raised him too, Thomas realizes. They did, all three of them. Maggie taught him numbers and business. Kate taught him to ride and shoot. Sarah taught him kindness and healing. They were his aunts, but they were mothers to him in every way that mattered. Thomas processes this. So I have 3 grandmothers. In a way, the family tree is complicated. But yes, Maggie, Kate, and Sarah were as much your grandmothers as Emily was. They shaped your father. They shaped this ranch. They shaped everything we are. Where are they now? Ethan's smile fades slightly. Maggie died in 1932. Heart failure. She was 75. Kate died in 1945. Pneumonia. She was 84. Sarah died in 1948. Peacefully in her sleep. She was 83. I'm sorry, Thomas says quietly. Don't be. They lived full lives. Good lives. They left behind children and grandchildren and a legacy that will outlast us all. Ethan stands slowly. His joints protest, but he manages. Come with me, boy. There's something you should see. They walk across the ranch, past the barn that's been rebuilt twice now, past the house that's been expanded and modernized but still has the original foundation, past the fields that have fed 3 generations. They walk to a small cemetery on a hill overlooking the entire spread. A white fence surrounds it. 4 graves in a neat row. The first headstone reads, Emily Collier, 1855 to 1882, beloved wife. The second, Margaret Sr. Cartwright, 1857 to 1932, sister, mother, partner, friend. The third, Catherine Brennan, 1861 to 1945, fierce, loyal, unforgettable. The fourth, Sarah Brennan, Morrison, 1865 to 1948, gentle strength. Healing hands, loving heart. Ethan kneels with some difficulty, places wildflowers on each grave. It's clear this is a regular ritual for him. I come here every week, he says quietly. Talk to them, tell them about the ranch, about the family, about you. He sits on a bench beside the graves. Thomas joins him. Kate, you'd love this boy, Ethan says to the stone. He's got your fire, your stubbornness. Maggie, the silver mine's still producing, just like you planned. Your great-grandchildren are running it now. Sarah, Jacob's great-grandson, just graduated from college, going to medical school, following in your footsteps. He's quiet for a moment. Then he speaks to the first grave. Emily, I kept my promise. I didn't die with you. I lived. I built something worth having. I hope that's what you wanted. Thomas watches his grandfather talk to the dead and understands. This is how you honor the people who shaped you, not by forgetting them, by carrying them forward. The ranch is yours now, Ethan says to Thomas. When I'm gone, not just the land, the legacy, the responsibility. That's a lot to carry, Thomas says quietly. It is, but you won't carry it alone. You have cousins, the Cartwrights, the Morrisons, other descendants of those 3 women, 32 of you in total, all connected through this land. What do you want me to do with it? Ethan considers the question. I want you to remember that this land was built by 4 people who chose to stand together when they could have run alone. I want you to remember that family isn't just blood, it's choice, it's loyalty, it's showing up when things are hard. He pauses. And I want you to remember that sometimes the bravest thing a man can do is admit he's afraid, admit he failed, and then stand up anyway. Like you did, Thomas says. Like all of us did. Me, Maggie, Kate, Sarah. We were all afraid. We all failed at different times. But we stood. Together. The sun is setting now. Orange and gold light spreads across the Wyoming grassland. The same land where a storm came 70 years ago, where 3 women ran for their lives, where one man decided to stop running from his past. "Come on," Ethan says, standing. "Your grandmother's waiting, the living one. She'll worry." They walk back to the house together. The ranch spreads around them, solid and enduring, a testament to courage and partnership and family. Inside, dinner is waiting. Thomas's parents are there, his sister, cousins visiting from the southern property. The house is full of life and noise and laughter. Ethan sits at the head of the table, not because he's in charge, just because he's the oldest, the last living member of the original 4. He looks around at all these people, children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of 4 people who refused to break 70 years ago. After dinner, as people are clearing dishes, Thomas asks one more question. "Grandfather, you said you learned what honor really means that night. What does it mean?" Ethan thinks carefully. Honor isn't about never being afraid. It isn't about never failing. It isn't about being perfect. He pauses. Honor is standing when it's easier to run. It's protecting those who can't protect themselves. It's admitting your mistakes and trying to do better. It's choosing the hard right over the easy wrong even when it costs you everything. "Did it cost you everything?" Thomas asks. Ethan looks around at the family filling his house, at the land stretching to the horizon, at the legacy built from choice and courage. "No," he says quietly. "It gave me everything." That night, after everyone has gone to bed, Ethan sits alone on the porch. The same porch where he's told this story. The same porch he sat on 70 years ago watching a storm approach. He rocks slowly, remembering. 3 women running through the rain. A barn door flung open. A choice made in a moment that changed everything. He thinks about Emily, his first love. About Maggie, Kate, and Sarah, his family by choice. About all the people who shaped his life and were shaped by his choices in return. He thinks about William Drake dead on a gallows. About Richard Drake rotting in prison. About justice and revenge and the difference between them. He thinks about the ranch. About 70 years of work and worry and joy. About the next generation ready to carry it forward. And he thinks that maybe, just maybe, he got it right. Made the right choice. Built the right legacy. The stars come out, bright and cold and distant. The same stars that shone on that first stormy night. The same stars that will shine long after he's gone. Ethan Collier is 70 years old. He's tired. His body aches. His memories are fading at the edges. But when he looks back on his life, he sees it clearly. The moment he stopped running and started standing. The moment he chose honor over safety. The moment 3 strangers became family. That storm brought more than rain. It brought redemption, purpose, love. It brought everything that mattered. Inside the house, Thomas lies awake thinking about everything he's heard. About courage and failure and standing when it's easier to run. About 3 women who refused to break and 1 man who finally stopped running. He thinks about the photograph. 4 people smiling before a barn. Family by choice. He thinks about the graves on the hill. 4 lives intertwined. 4 legacies merged into one. He thinks about the ranch. About the responsibility waiting for him. About the choice to accept it or walk away. It's a heavy thing, legacy. But as his grandfather said, he won't carry it alone. He has cousins, extended family, 32 descendants of those original 4, all of them connected through land and blood and choice. That's worth preserving, worth protecting, worth standing for. Tomorrow, Thomas will ask to hear more stories about the early years, about the building of the business, about specific moments and people and choices. But tonight, he has enough. Enough to understand who he is, where he comes from, what he's meant to carry forward. Outside, the old man rocks on his porch. Inside, the young man plans his future. And between them, 70 years of history, of courage, of family, of 3 women who ran into a storm and found home, of 1 man who opened a door and found redemption. The story is complete. The legacy is secure. The next generation is ready. And somewhere on that hill, 4 graves rest in peace, knowing the work they started continues, knowing their choice to stand together changed everything, knowing they built something that will outlast stone and memory and time itself. Family, not by blood alone, by choice, by courage, by standing together when the storm comes. That's the legacy. That's what endures. That's what Ethan Collier learned 70 years ago in a barn during a storm. And that's what Thomas Collier is learning now, sitting in a house built by 4 people who refused to break. The last stand wasn't about fighting. It was about standing, together, when everything said to run. That's the story. That's the truth. That's the legacy that will carry forward generation after generation as long as there are Colliers and Brennans and Morrisons and Cartwrights who remember, who choose to stand, who choose family, who choose honor. The end.